always do? Follow the money.
That's what I always say. You always follow the money.
Yeah. This is Follow the Money with Mitch Moss and Paulie Howard on VSiN.
Yes, here we go. Follow the money. Paulie and Dustin Sweetelson, VSiN, the Sports Betting Network, Sirius XM, Channel 158, Downtown Circle, where it all goes down. Brian Mahoney live from the Garden coming up. Kick around who do you trust in the East, and also Nick Whalen with his props as we have two series that get underway in the association. Good to see you. Kay Adams calls him Swede. What's been going on? Been a long time, my man.
I got the Paulie Howard PTSD last night. Got the email, all caps, by the way. People don't know this. Paulie Howard only writes emails in all caps. And it was like I was producing the morning show all over again. It was 1 a.m. I wake up. Here's win, lose. Cold sweat, freaking out about how Paulie's going to yell at me when I come in because I deleted too many of his dog videos overnight.
Those were the days, my friend. Those were the days, getting up at 2 a.m. Absolutely. This is fun because you go back to all these game sevens and all these fantastic round one series, and now, bam, right into round two. And we got big news that we'll get to with Minnesota and San Antonio coming up. But, we could do this for the next 40 years. I don't think we'll see what transpired in a 48-hour stretch with the collapses and what happened. Mosley fired today. Orlando blows a 3-1 series lead. They could never figure out the offense. The Wagner injury was huge. But Friday night was an all-timer. To be outscored 55-19 in the second half, they shot 11%. Cade outscored them in the second half by themselves, 24-19. They went 45 minutes of actual real time between made baskets, made one shot in the fourth quarter, and that was coming off the heels of the Atlanta meltdown when they were down 62-19 in the second quarter of a home playoff game.
No, it's almost impossible. It's to shoot that many shots and to not have one land and just break it up. And this Magic team is so weird because at that point in the series, it was like, they're the ones that have all the options. If Detroit was the team that went 45 minutes, you understand, because it just means Cade Cunningham got cold. Instead, it's Orlando. And how about Jalen Suggs, the way he finished this series? 8 of his final 41 in over the last 4 games, 19.51%. The Orlando Magic have not won a playoff series since 2010 against the Atlanta Hawks. That was a Dwight Howard-led Orlando Magic team. This was a roller coaster of a ride because the Magic were the better team, it feels like, for most of the series.
Yep.
Detroit finds a way because they've got something different. They've got a fortitude. They've got a mentality. We saw it with them against the Knicks last year. Can they carry momentum to Cleveland? Because based on what I saw last night, I know the Cavs won. I do not trust that team, and I am someone who has 6-1 on them to win the East.
I'm with you. That was ridiculous. You had to go 7 to beat Toronto, who were down 2 starters.
No Ingram, no Quickly.
I know. It's ridiculous.
And then James Harden, big picture.
Yep.
Is there an athlete in all of sports that has been this great, but is this least clutch in big moments? Yep. I don't know if there is. I was trying to come up with names like A-Rod, but he eventually won one. Clayton Kershaw, he eventually did win one. I don't know how much he played a role in that. Is there anyone who the big picture of all the work is someone who is one of the greats of all time, but when it matters the most, they shrink the biggest?
Mitchell's never made it to the conference finals, and Detroit looks like they exercised the demons. But the other thing is what transpired with the tickets at cash, too. So going back the last 79 years, you had 13 teams that had rallied down 3-1.
Yep.
And then it happened twice in less than 24 hours. What happened? And the tickets that cashed on Philly, on Kalshi and Paulie Market, if you bet $100 on the Sixers after Game 4, it paid $10,000. They were 22-1 to come back and win at several sports books. They were 12-1 to be down 2+ games and win. They were 14-1 to never lead in the series and win. They had won 3 playoff games in Boston since 1983. Then they won 3 in a span of 12 days. And the Celtics give it away and choke again with their horrible offense and chucking threes. Incredible.
Well, it's also a tough day for the people who go, oh, everyone behind the counter, they know what's going to happen. They have the script. They understand it. Boston was plus $1.60, $1.70 to win the Eastern Conference coming into the playoffs.
I know.
Why was the assumption that Jason Tatum, who didn't play all season long, that leg was just going to hold up for the playoffs? That was a misprice from day one. I was never willing to believe in Boston because of that. And then we have to have a Missoula conversation. I know he's not going to get fired. I know he's not on the hot seat. He won a title.
Well, how about coach? He's going to get coach of the year. How awkward is that going to be?
And then, okay, tell me this. you don't adjust when things aren't going the way you planned in multiple games. Isn't that literally the definition of coaching, is making adjustments? Just doing the same thing you game plan for is not coaching. It's
amen,
being
brother.
stubborn.
Amen, brother. And then he panicked with the Game 7 lineup. That lineup hadn't been out there the whole season.
Right. My God.
But like, I'm not going to play the bench guys, and then all of a sudden I'm going to throw these guys in Game 7. And then Vucevic, trading Simons, he hasn't even played in a Game 7. But you're right, where it's, we're just going to get great looks, and the percentage of wide open looks is going to be in our favor, and that's going to carry. But they have to change how they play, and also their math equation with analytics, because this happens every series where they have two stinkers where they don't shoot. So that's 2 losses right there. Then you can actually get outplayed in a game. So you want to talk about math and wide open threes, and we're going to shoot 50 threes a game. You're dead last in shots at the rim, and you're dead last in trips to the free throw line. Change it.
And I don't want to hear about Jaylen Brown should have been an MVP. The guy can't dribble with his left hand. He can beat up on teams in the regular season. He had 33 points. He was not all that impressive. He turned the ball over. He didn't look like a superstar. It doesn't help when you don't have anyone around you and the defenses can key in on you, but that's a 76er squad. Those guys did not play together for most of this season.
Yes.
Embiid was never in the lineup. George was suspended, right? You've got Edgecombe, the rookie, just being like, hi, by the way, I'm the new guy on the team. Welcome aboard. Thanks for joining us this year.
Well, it's a discussion that nobody wants to have, and we'll stretch out and do it later in the show. But other than the NFL, the regular season doesn't matter in these sports.
And had Orlando beat Detroit in that series, it would have been the biggest indictment on the NBA regular season. There would be no point in ever trying ever again. If the 8 beat the 1, the NBA's lucky. The NBA is lucky Detroit showed up, because if Orlando did that, no one would try to be the 1 seed next year.
Yeah. Zach Lowe actually said this, that when they had all the guys together and they actually looked like a good team, it happened 6 times the whole year with Philly.
That's crazy.
Because, you're right, because George had the suspension, Embiid was hurt and hardly played, and other guys were in and out of the lineup. But the team that we saw close out Boston and win 3 in a row, I mean, that's a team that can beat the Knicks, and this is a team that could win. Someone's got to have it. Tomorrow we're doing pizzeria. Like, they were 250 to 1 to win the East when they were down 3 games to 1. This is incredible.
How do you gauge what they did to Boston, though? Is it Boston S the bed, or is it Philly stepped up and beat them? I think there's a little bit of both, but at the same time, why is there so much Philly love today? I'm hearing everyone's on the Sixers. You've got Joel Embiid, who's not in shape, who's dealing with a knee, who's off an appendectomy, and he's not 100%. He's got a 1-day turnaround in between these 2 games. Why is the assumption he's just going to be Embiid tonight against the Knicks?
Yeah, I think 7.5 is too much, though.
That's fair.
But there's a lot of love about them winning the series, though, too. But all good points about the short turnaround, and now we're going every other day. But the guy's been awesome.
Oh, he's been incredible.
And they have now they don't have depth, and the Knicks bench has been good. And can this Cat? That's the thing. Does that continue? Because they have their history calling each other out on IG, and you're soft, and you're a flop or whatever. But is the Cat with the point center now? Does this assist continue, and does this incredible run that the Knicks had to close out Atlanta carry over to this, and how the Garden's going to be a madhouse?
Yeah, we're going to find out early, because I think they're going to have to get Cat involved to build his confidence and make him feel good. But if Embiid takes his lunch early in this game, it could mess with his psyche and take him completely out of this. He played 16 minutes in one of the games against Philly this year when Embiid played, and Embiid forced him to foul out in 16 minutes. That's another stat that feels like it's almost impossible.
Well, in your corner, Maxey has torched him too.
Maxey,
you're going to put Bridges on Maxey, I guess, but Maxey has owned the Knicks.
Maxey is the guy you fear. If you're the Knicks, you fear that guy because he is an engine, he is a catalyst, he is energy. And let's be fair, Josh Hart was awesome last series in slowing down McCollum and limiting. Jalen Johnson never showed up for that series. That was the defense of Bridges and Hart and to Anunoby to some degree. I think there's a chance they may put Anunoby on Embiid. Let his athleticism take over. I know there's a size discrepancy there, but number 1, critical for the Knicks if they're winning this series and advancing. And by the way, I think their number is too short as well. The East is still wide open in my eyes. They have to slow down Maxey somehow, some way.
Yeah. So I mentioned earlier we could do this in the next 40, 50 years. And how do you win a road playoff game and you have 9 shots on goal? How does that happen with Montreal? And then the batted puck goes off Vasilevsky and in. And they didn't even, in the second period, Montreal didn't have a shot on goal. They had 2 power plays. And then later that night, Colorado scores 9 goals.
What happened to home ice, by the way?
Oh, forget it. Doesn't mean anything.
It is
absolutely
so out the window. That series especially, right? It just feels like Tampa was winning in Montreal, Montreal winning to close it out on the road at Tampa, completely irrelevant. And then you have a complete opposite game later that night. I was on the air. I was doing Cashing Out last night, RIP. And that game was, every time I looked up, there was a goal. I'd try to focus on something else, and I'd look in the corner, and they're celebrating another goal. At one point, Minnesota had a 5-4 lead. I started getting spicy because I have a ticket on them I bet last week to win the West.
Oh, the in-play was insanity in that game.
And then Colorado reels off 4 more goals and win it 9-6.
Yeah. How high was the what would the in-play get for the goal? Did you see 14.5, 15.5 like in the third period?
13.5 I saw out there, I want to say.
Colorado got the 2 quick ones late. But
yeah, I think 13.5.
Yes.
And that thing just kept dancing back and forth, dancing. You had a brief moment of like 2 minutes where you could have gotten plus money on the Avalanche.
Yeah.
And then it disappeared.
At the end of the first period, the in-play total was 9.5. I mean, it gets there in the second period.
Pre-game total 5.5. We cashed it early in the second. That's insane.
Yeah, same sport. Yeah, I win a game. I don't have a shot on goal for a period, and 9 for the game, and another team goes out 9 goals. I know Montreal outplayed them for much of the series, but that's another one too. Yeah,
9 shots.
I know, and they win the game.
That's like going to the bar. You have 9 chances to ask a girl out. Are you going to win that night? I know I'm not.
That's incredible. We got big news coming up. This is nuts. How this series price and the game 1 price has shifted with the big news. We'll get to that coming up on Follow the Money, VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. Let me get your attention real quick, podcast listeners. I've got something for you that almost feels too good to be true. First, credit where credit's due. If you're listening to this podcast, you're already leveling up your betting game. You're riding along with our best bets and top angles. And when there's a good game on, you're getting involved with a few props and alt markets as well. There's one more layer if you really want to step things up, and that's VSiN Pro. I've mentioned it before, but things are only getting better for our pro subscribers. We just rolled out our MLB prop projections, breaking down some of the best edges across strikeouts, hits, home runs, and more. And that's on top of everything else pro subscribers already get, including public betting splits, expert picks, and betting guides across the sports calendar. If you haven't tried it yet, stop sleeping on it. You can get your first month just $9.99 or save big with promo code POD26 on the annual subscription. Hit the link in the description and start cashing in with VSiN Pro. All right, back to the show.
This is Follow the Money on VSiN.
9 days after badly hyperextending his left knee and suffering a bone bruise, Anthony Edwards is going to play tonight against San Antonio in Game 1. A couple days ago, the Timberwolves were 70-1 to win the West. They're 45-1 right now. FanDuel opens San Antonio minus 3,000. Take back on Minnesota anywhere from 11 to 13-1 without playing a minute. The price now is Minnesota plus 330. Spurs minus 425. That's at DraftKings. The Game 1 spread opened 14.5. It got to 8.5 here at Circa. It's back to 9.5 now. This is insanity.
We don't even know what he's going to look like. We don't know what percentage of himself he's going to be. And that's, oh, by the way, Dante DiVincenzo's still out. Io DeSumo is not playing tonight.
Yeah.
So you're going to ask this guy.
He's been ruled out?
I believe he was ruled out. I heard JVT
question.
say that earlier today. I believe he was ruled out. Let me confirm that.
Yeah.
But yeah. And now you've got Edwards coming back. He's going to be limited in some way. I'm sure he's going to try and carry the load, but you're asking a lot from a guy who's got a knee injury that was expected to return maybe in Game 3, Game 4.
Yeah.
Now to his credit, he had a 55-point game against these Spurs earlier this year. He had 32 in another, 23 in another. So he averaged 36.7. That was going to be a lot of production that they were going to have to make up Minnesota, and they just don't have the bodies to do that against a defense like the Spurs. I love the under tonight.
I'm with you. Good call. And DeSumo is out. Thank you for that. But this is where the odds makers assumed that he would be out for much of the series, or at least the first couple games, then it'd be 2-0 San Antonio. But it's also like Embiid and like Austin Reeves, though. Is there going to be rust? and maybe he doesn't play well, because you hit on it earlier about what does he look like. Now, what they did against Denver was incredible. Denver had the number one offense, and they held them to 108 points per 100 possessions in the series, which would have been 28th in the regular season. Denver can't guard you, but here you're not going to be able to attack the rim. But it goes back to the last series, though. What Rudy did on Joker was incredible. The friendship and looking up to him and a mentor with Rudy and Wemby. What does Rudy do against Wemby? But certainly an incredible supporting cast, though, that Wemby has here.
Yeah, Gobert against Jokic held him to 42% shooting when he was guarding him last series. McDaniels last series defending Murray held him to 34% shooting over the last 4 games of the series. How do you replicate that against this team? Because they've got Fox, they've got Castle, 2 pretty versatile guys in the backcourt. The Gobert piece is fascinating. That's what jumps out is how does he find a way to play the angles and limit Wembanyama? Because I don't know how anyone limits Wembanyama to this point in his career. If you look at the way these two teams match up, I think they both want it to be slower paced, especially with the Edwards injury. That's why the under makes all the sense in the world. But the spread right now sitting at 9.5. We were at 13.5 last night when I was doing cashing out. So that is a huge drop in the spread, which is probably a good thing if you want to back San Antonio right now. But I'm not getting there with that. Instead, how about this? Last night I put this up at vsin.com/picks. Randall under 31.5 PRA, and I love it. It's at 29.5 now that Edwards is back. Edwards going to have the ball in his hand a lot. I don't think Randall's going to be able to get going, and then he has the tough matchup with that front court and Wemby and all that length for San Antonio. I don't know if he gets going.
It is a different ball game now, what you're facing defensively. And, it's big getting Ant back, but good luck with Shannon and McDaniels getting those kind of looks, especially Shannon. How could he abuse Murray in that game 6 as well? How about Fox props? Like if we're going to see a lot about old man Conley, if Fox can go off and maybe hit a couple threes. I know Nick Whalen's high on him. We'll talk to him coming up. But they were awesome from 3 in the Portland series. I didn't like how they messed around at times, and they had bad numbers when Wemby wasn't on the floor, and he doesn't play a ton of minutes. But it goes back to, if you're going to get these wide open looks, do you knock them down? And they were fantastic against Portland in that first round.
Yeah, defense a little bit different, obviously, too, here coming up now.
Yeah.
Both teams had to make some crazy comebacks last series to wind up in this spot in the second round. I do like Fox. I went over 17.5 points. For a really good perimeter defense, Minnesota does struggle with point guards. They allowed the 8th most points, 2nd most rebounds to point guards. I just think Fox and that speed, that could be an issue here for Conley to keep up with if he can get downhill. So I really do like De'Aaron Fox. I'm with Whalen on that. I think that makes so much sense.
Okay, so the Knicks are now laying 7, and they're the favorites to win the East. The series price at DraftKings currently $270. Take back on Philly plus 220. Now, does this continue with Cat? As Embiid's done a number on him, and talking trash, and you mentioned fouling out. But moving him to point center and asking him more to be a facilitator. Again, this is a guy who has averaged 3 assists his whole career. And he had 26 in the last 3 games against Atlanta, including 2 triple-doubles. And it's up there at 35-1 today at DraftKings. The Knicks beat Atlanta by 16, 29, and 51 points to close out. I'm a little bit concerned about Philly coming back 3-1, and now you got the short turnaround as well, what you're talking about. But how do they hide Brunson? And Bridges do a good job and slow down Maxey. But can Philly get stops against this? And I know you're high on OG too, which I don't mind OG's PRA, as he was a beast against Atlanta. But again, Atlanta didn't have any size either.
No, but that's the question I have for Cat. Can that carry over into this series? Because it was just a great matchup for him. Okongwu did not have the ability or the size to match up with Karl Anthony Towns. It's a different situation here because you've got Embiid, you've got all of that he's done to Cat over the years, and then more importantly, just team defense for Philadelphia. A lot better than Atlanta was. So I'm not sure that's going to work, but I do think New York wants to do that. They want to funnel it through him. I kind of like Jalen Brunson under 6.5 assists. I threw that up there earlier last night because if they try to make Cat that facilitator, that might be a couple of assists that Brunson doesn't get. OG Anunoby, he's the key to the whole thing. He is the most reliable Knick night in and night out in these playoffs. You go back and look at elimination games last year. he always came through. Game ones last year, he was very good going over this PRA of 25.5, 2 out of 3. He hit this 2 out of 3 games against Philly in the regular season, and over in the Atlanta series, 5 out of 6. 25.5 PRA feels awfully low for a guy that I think is probably scoring 20 points tonight.
How about this Paul George turnaround? The suspension did wonders for him because he comes in fresh and rejuvenated, and how well he played that the break helped him out. And he's sitting there. He's $1.20 to score 15 points. And you go back, he did it 17 of the last 19 games, and he's been deadly from 3 as well.
Yep. 36 years old. Another short turnaround for this guy.
Yeah.
I know he's rested. I was on his under rebounds and assists in game 7. I kind of want to go back to that again just because I think those are effort stats, right? That's a lot of effort, especially the rebound department for a guy at his age.
He did it 3 threes. He played well, but only had 13 points. But
So I think if I'm going to attack anything with Paul George in this spot, I'm going to look at under in terms of rebounds or rebounds and assists combined, because even Dimes, like he had one game in that series with Boston where he had 7, but I don't really seeing him being involved in that aspect of their offense either, because he has to take on a big load defensively as well. He's still a very good defender. His defense was awesome against the Celtics. That's what he's there for. And then the occasional big shot, that's cherry on top, man.
Okay, very good. These are. Why are they going at the same time?
Wait, are they? I didn't even realize that.
What is this all about?
I didn't even realize that.
They've never done this in my lifetime. It's the second round. You got a 5 o'clock and a 6:30, and then tomorrow it's 4 and 5:30.
Is it because we don't have a true West Coast team going tonight? Is that why we don't have a team in the Pacific time zone?
No, they're only doing it these 2 nights.
That makes no sense.
Yeah, I know.
That makes no sense. Why wouldn't you spread this out and guarantee you get maximum numbers for both of these games? It's idiotic.
I know. I
got to tell you, Adam Silver, maybe more than any commissioner, if we were power ranking all the major commissioners in sports, he might be below Manfred for me right now. And that's saying a lot because I think Manfred stinks.
Yeah, I know. It was said last week. If you can't explain something to me in an elevator ride, you've lost me. And this whole tanking thing, where they change it. Here's what their proposals are, and they can't. And now I'm more confused when you read this stuff.
Well, keep it simple. You can't be in the lottery 2 years in a row.
Yeah,
that's
right.
number one.
Yeah.
So you can't have generational long tanks to make sure that you have as many top picks as possible, and it forces you to actually try every other year. That's it. That's the solution.
Get to hockey later in the show as well. Carolina has won 15 of 17 against Philly. And Philly still hasn't scored a first-period goal in the entire playoffs. Carolina's the first team since 1986. First 5 playoff games, they haven't trailed. They're up to 260 now. Looking for an edge in baseball betting? Check out the VSiN Daily Diamond, sharp daily baseball betting insight all season long. Former pitcher Jensen Lewis and Dave Ross break it all down. Lines, totals, props, future. Subscribe to the VSiN Daily Diamond wherever you get your podcasts. And while you're there, search VSiN for the full podcast lineup. Everything from the NBA, college sports, horse racing, and more. VSiN is the sports betting network. You know anyone who had the super? You know anyone who had the winner?
I don't know anyone who had the winner. It was brutal.
I know.
I mean, poor Samich likes 2 horses. They both get ruled out. What are you going to do?
I know.
It's ridiculous.
Oh, God.
Like
no one had the 22.
I didn't even hear that horse's name until they were calling it, making a move in the race.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Paulie Howard, Dustin Sweetelson, Mitch out. He's back Wednesday. We'll talk to Nick Whalen up next, who he likes for props. And in these playoffs, round 2, right around the corner, coming up on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. Stick and stay.
This is Follow the Money on VSiN.
Developing situation in the Prem. Everton and Man City tied at 1 in the 70th minute. Oh, boy. Arsenal. This would be big for Arsenal to win the Prem as Man City now tied with 20 minutes left. Nick Whalen joins us now. Watch him every day. Prop Points, 1 p.m. Eastern. Does an excellent job. We're here to talk NBA and what he likes. First of all, let's start with the late game. It's a huge move. Now, Ant's going to play for Minnesota. And how about this news that he comes back and the series price and the line, everything's going crazy now with the San Antonio, Minnesota spread and series price.
Yeah, looking at the updated series price right now, guys, and good to be here with you. Minnesota now plus 330 to win the series at DraftKings. Spurs still a hefty favorite, minus 425, but a huge adjustment on the game one line, which I saw as high as 13.5 earlier this morning. Then it dipped to 11.5, and now we are down to 9.5. Now, I do think it's fair to question, what version of Anthony Edwards are we allegedly getting tonight? Because, we're like 24 hours removed from the report being that he was targeting game 3, which is not until Friday. And then we get a report this morning that, the training staff is iffy on him playing, but Edwards himself is pushing to play. It appears he's going to win that battle and be out there tonight. But, this is an injury that he's been dealing with, since the end of the regular season. He's been in and out. I feel like I trust Anthony Edwards more than I do the average player, the average star, to kind of know his body and be out there and be effective, more so than, for instance, what we saw from Austin Reeves when he came back and the final line looked okay, but he was 4 of 16 from the field. Embiid, even in his first game back in the Boston series, I thought got his numbers, but was kind of a net negative. So that's always the rub when you have an injured player, especially someone as important as Anthony Edwards coming back. So honestly, guys, I might be inclined to buy back in a little bit on the San Antonio Spurs at a reduced number. But as I told Dustin on his show last night, my favorite play for game one has to be the under. I just think when you go for facing this Denver team, that look, I still don't know what happened. Hopefully we get some sort of postmortem on why that team played like it did in round one. But a lot of those looks at the rim, Minnesota shot almost 70% in the restricted area against Denver in round one. Those just aren't going to be there against Victor Wembanyama. The Spurs did the Blazers to about 57% in the restricted area in round one, which is very, very good. Both of these teams were top 5 in the NBA in restricted area defense during the regular season. Minnesota was actually slightly better than San Antonio. So, we've seen a lot of these games, especially in round one, turn into rock fights. I don't know if this will quite be, game 4, game 5, whatever it was between Toronto and Cleveland, where both teams are struggling to shoot 35%. But I think Minnesota, especially with a less than 100% Anthony Edwards, I think it's going to be an uphill battle tonight offensively for the Wolves.
Yeah, what do you want to do with this total, Nick? It's moved since we talked last night. I bet the under 217.5. It's 220.5. Even with Edwards back, you still willing to play the under here?
I am.
Me too.
And look, I do think, Anthony Edwards would not be out there if he didn't feel like he could be effective. I'm sure he feels like he'll be a positive influence, but it's not a given to me. I mean, you feel better offensively, I guess, with Edwards out there, but I'm willing to see what he looks like first before I just assume that it's going to be a huge net positive for Minnesota. So yeah, I'm still willing to play the under, certainly at 3 points higher than it was last night.
How about your Fox props now?
Yeah, I think this is a big spot, a big series for De'Aaron Fox. There's so much focus on Victor Wembanyama, and rightfully so with the Spurs. But Fox had a couple big games, late in that Portland series was a big reason why they were able to close it out, and felt like he was picking up confidence as that season went along, or that series, I should say, went along. So I don't mind looking at the 3-pointers tonight for De'Aaron Fox. I don't mind looking at the points plus assists, the overall PRA. I think he's going to end up being a driving force for them throughout this series. Stephon Castle was kind of more like the PRA darling in the NBA prop world down the stretch in the regular season. And, we saw how Portland defended Stephon Castle in round one. There was not a lot of respect shown for that jump shot, kind of daring him to shoot, almost giving him the Rajon Rondo treatment from back in the day. But to me, I think this is more of a spot where the Spurs are going to need De'Aaron Fox to be that clear number 2 option.
Eastern Conference, we got game 1 tonight, Nick. Sixers and Knicks, Madison Square Garden, short turnaround for Philly. New York's been waiting for this. We know the Cat and Embiid situation, their history together. But you look at the market right now, New York's pretty heavily favored as the team to win the Eastern Conference. How many games do you think this series goes?
I'm happily playing the over 5.5 games, guys. I know the Knicks looked really, really good in those final 3 games against Atlanta, but lest we forget that like a week ago, we were wondering if this team was even going to make it out of round 1. They were down 2-1 to the Hawks. So I don't want to overly inflate the Knicks based on how the second half of that series went versus the first half. I do think New York is probably closer to the team that we saw in the final 3 games than those 2 ugly games, in games 2 and 3. But I still think we have to take the Sixers very seriously here. The big question, and I know we talked about this last night, Dustin, is just can Joel Embiid stay healthy? Can he play this entire series? It's been a long time since we've been in a spot like this. The Sixers are used to these Embiid injuries popping up, and all of a sudden their season ends either before the playoffs or in round 1. It's just going to be a continuing question. The longer this series goes, the longer the Sixers stay alive in the postseason. We saw what having a healthy Joel Embiid back in the lineup did against Boston late in that series. I think it can do the same against the Knicks. It's just a question of can Embiid stay on the court. You mentioned the Karl Anthony Towns matchup. I don't think he's actually going to see, a ton of Embiid on him defensively. I think the Sixers will likely throw some smaller defenders at him. Historically, that has worked well against Karl Anthony Towns, but can he carry over what we saw in that round one series, especially down the stretch against Atlanta? Karl Anthony Towns, the playmaker, I think almost matters more than the scoring.
Yes.
The Knicks guys are 31-10 straight up this season when Cat has at least 3 assists. I am a little bit worried about Cat getting in foul trouble on the defensive end if he is asked to chase around Joel Embiid. I think we'll see more 2-center lineups with Mitchell Robinson out there absorbing some of those fouls. But as we know, the last time these two teams played with Embiid on the court, Cat fouled out in 16 minutes. Knicks are 5-14 in games where Cat is in serious foul trouble with 5 or more fouls.
Great numbers. And a guy also who was phenomenal in that Atlanta series was OG. What do you want to do with OG props?
Yeah, so a couple ways I'm playing this game in the prop market. For one, I'm going to fade Karl Anthony Towns in game one. For better or for worse, maybe this will look really dumb like 4 hours from now, but I think the under 35.5 PRA for Towns. I have to have that on the card. I'm willing to keep buying in on OG Anunoby. It's not going to be as efficient as it was late in that series against Atlanta, but 3+3s tonight for Anunoby, plus 118 at DraftKings is something I put in earlier today. Sixers gave up over 22 wide open threes per game in round one. And I know Boston is a high volume team, but there were only a couple games in that series where we really saw the extreme volume from the Celtics. So I think that carries over. And then you have to look at Josh Hart tonight as well, guys. I think he's going to be the guy who gets Joel Embiid. And I hesitate to even say chasing him around. It's more going to be just kind of walking around while Josh Hart has his kind of looks. But does Josh Hart have the confidence to take and make those looks? We will find out at plus 135. I'm willing to take that chance tonight. 2+3s for Josh Hart.
Yeah, they may just dare him and leave him open at times. And then if he starts hitting them, then they'll start playing him a little bit tighter. How about the other Eastern Conference series we get going on Tuesday? Detroit laying 3.5 hosting Cleveland. I got to tell you, Nick, I'd love to make a strong case for believing in one of these teams. I really don't after what we just saw, but you do. Who do you like in this matchup?
Well, strong belief might be putting it a little bit too strongly, I guess. But I'm on the Cavs here, guys. I'm on the Cavs. I know it was a little bit uglier than we wanted it to be in round one against Toronto. I think the Raptors were actually a little bit underrated coming into that series when you looked at the series price for that versus Knicks Hawks. But I just don't know how you could bet Detroit right now with any level of confidence. I mean, you needed like this all-time series from Tobias Harris just to survive an Orlando Magic team that was down Franz Wagner late in that series. I still think Cleveland has a massive talent advantage in this series. I was a little surprised, that Detroit opened and is still holding as the series favorite, just based on kind of public perception with how those 2 first-round series went. The Pistons' reliance on Cade Cunningham, they were able to get away with it in round one against Orlando. I see that being a much bigger issue in round two. The Cavs have a really good rangy defender in Jalen Tyson, who they could throw at Cade Cunningham, had a lot of success in that individual matchup during the regular season. There's always going to be the Harden concern in the back of your mind. But the thing with the Pistons is like they need Cade Cunningham to have these monster games, and they probably need Tobias Harris to repeat what he did in round one to win this series. Whereas the Cavs could still survive when those Harden games pop up because they have Donovan Mitchell, they have Evan Mobley, and they have Jared Allen, who I'm hoping is as engaged in this series as he was in game 7 yesterday, 22-19 with 3 blocks. Cavs are 23-5, guys, when they get Jared Allen involved, when he scores at least 15 points, 19-5 when he has double-digit rebounds.
Good. Excellent numbers. And quickly, I love what you're doing tomorrow. The Lakers were swept by OKC in the regular season. Average score, 125-96. They couldn't score against Houston. What's going to happen against OKC?
I think much of the same, as what we saw during the regular season, guys. I just don't see the Lakers without Luka doing a whole lot offensively. I'm scared to actually play the game total because I'm worried about how many points OKC is going to score, but under 98.5 on the Lakers team total, guys. I know Houston's a good defensive team. They played this knockdown drag out series, but the Lakers turnover issues are really what I think could sink them early in this series. They had averaged more than 18 turnovers per game, by far the highest turnover rate of any team in the playoffs so far. And OKC forced the highest turnover rate. They have the lowest turnover rate of any team in the NBA during the regular season. It's just a really, really bad matchup for the Lakers. It's a bad matchup for everybody. Give me the under on the Lakers team total.
I'm with you. Thanks, Nick. Good luck. Strong appearance.
Thank you, guys.
Nick Whalen. Up next, win some, lose some. Crazy weekend. You won't believe some of these big tickets that cashed, and 2 horrific beats coming up. Follow the money.
This is Follow the Money on VSiN.
Paulie Howard, Dustin Sweetelson, Mitch back Wednesday. Going to be rocking tonight at the Garden. Game 1, Knicks and Sixers. We go out, talk to Brian Mahoney, covers the NBA for the Associated Press. He's on the Progressive guest line. And how things can change, my friend. About 10 days ago, the Knicks were down 2-1. The sky was falling. They're going to fire Mike Brown. Now they're favorites to win the East.
It sure changes in a hurry, right? Here I am at the Garden tonight. I wasn't sure where I would be 10 days ago, home for the summer, but they turned that around in a big way. They certainly look like the team they thought they could be, that people thought they could be.
Yes.
And the way they play, and I understand why they are the favorites now.
Brian, I've read a lot of stuff about the Knicks roster construction over the years. I'm a Knicks fan. And to me, when they acquired Anunoby a few years ago, they brought in Bridges. I know Bridges hasn't worked out, but defensively, he made an impact in the Boston series. The conventional thought I've read for the most part is that this roster was put together to shut down Boston.
Yes.
Well, they're not getting Boston now.
Yes.
They're getting Philly. How does that impact some of these key guys on this roster? How do you think they match up with the Sixers overall?
Well, it's a great point because I think that's what ultimately cost them last year. They built a roster to beat Boston. They beat Boston, and then they couldn't beat the pace Indiana played at, the way Indiana played. So the same thing again, yes. Anunoby and Bridges, those guys were brought in to play against, Tatum and Brown. Philadelphia's a faster team. They don't have a matchup for Maxey.
Right.
He kills them,
right.
But most teams don't. So, they're going to have to figure it out. They did obviously get Jose Alvarado during the year. Deuce McBride can take some shifts there. So they have options, but certainly I think they're more comfortable playing Boston style.
Yeah. Are you okay with the bench was good against Atlanta, and Philly's bench was 13th out of the 16 playoff teams. Do you feel they have a nice edge there?
I certainly do, Paulie. And, certainly I think that bench is a lot of times overrated in the playoffs. You cut your rotation, you play less guys, you rely on your starters more. But fourth quarter the other night, Philadelphia looked gassed. I mean, those guys had to go hard. The Knicks had an easy series, and they feel comfortable with they can switch things up. They have a great backup center in Robinson. They have, guards they like with Jordan Clarkson and Alvarado. So they're comfortable with their bench, and I do think it will make a difference in this series.
Well, let's get zesty for a second here, Brian, as Karl Anthony Towns was a different player partway through the Atlanta series. Winds up averaging 6 assists per game, almost 19 points, 11 rebounds. But this has been a bugaboo for him going up against the Sixers and specifically Joel Embiid. What are you hearing and what are you seeing? What are you feeling about this matchup for Cat down low with Embiid back playing?
Well, I'm looking forward to it. I think we all are, because that is certainly a question that, going into the series with Atlanta, everyone knew Atlanta didn't have a lot of size. Some way or another, Karl Anthony Towns was going to have a big series, whether it was scoring or whatever. We didn't necessarily know he was going to be passing the way he did as a distributor. But obviously Philadelphia has size, to play against him. So how do they use him here? Will it be the same way? Can they negate him more? I think, the Knicks would love for him to keep playing the way he did, but certainly there's reason to think that it can be changed here by Philadelphia.
I love how they used him and how the assists were crazy and 2 double-doubles as well. Staying on that front, will we see the Twin Towers? Will he play Robinson and Cat together, and will he put Robinson on Embiid a lot?
I think they're going to have to give that a try. I think it certainly can be a weapon for them. Robinson is a great energy defender. He's a guy who makes Embiid work, and then you can, play Towns away from the basket. So, I don't know how quick we'll see that option, but certainly it's something they have to look to, and it could be an advantage for them.
OG Anunoby, the contributions, stepping up so many times that this team needs him. What stands out to you about his game? What type of role do you anticipate him having in this series? Because we started off talking Cat. Obviously, Jalen Brunson is the captain of this team, but how important do you see OG Anunoby being to this series?
Enormous. I think, Dustin, there's people who watch the Knicks who would tell you they believe Anunoby is their best all-around player. When they got him a couple years ago, he was looked at as a guy who, great defender and a spot-up three-point shooter. Look at the way he's putting the ball on the floor now, attacking guys, off the dribble. He can defend anybody, any position. And 2 years ago against Philadelphia, he dominated that series in a lot of ways late in the series. It was Brunson scoring, I know that, but Anunoby could play against Embiid. They didn't have an option against him, so I certainly think he's going to have a big series here.
With you. His PRA is 25 tonight, minus 120. How about what Paul George has done coming out? And like the suspension was a good thing because he's been fresh and at least given him 15 points. He looks like the Paul George from Indiana.
He really does. I didn't expect this, the time he was away this year, but he's in a great groove. I mean, in that series against Boston, when he shot it, I thought it was going in every time.
Yeah, well said.
Right now, look, the way they're playing right now, he's suddenly like their fourth best player, and that's a heck of a good fourth best player to have. So if he keeps that up, because all of a sudden then Anunoby or Bridges, one of those guys, has to play against him. And then either it's Maxey or Edgecombe has an advantage against who they're playing against.
Let's go back a year, Brian. As Tom Thibodeau fired following last season, Mike Brown's brought in. The expectations are obviously very different for someone in their first year taking over a job. What are the biggest differences you've seen this year between Brown and Thibodeau now at this point in the season? And do you think Brown is ready for this task?
I think so. I think the biggest difference is one, we mentioned the bench earlier. Certainly his mandate was to play more guys, develop, more of a rotation, and he has done that. Again, I didn't know how much it would matter now, but when we saw last year, when the Knicks had to change things up against Indiana, it was sort of too late. He was bringing back guys who had barely played. Certainly now, with the way Mike Brown has done it, he had at one point not played Jordan Clarkson. He brought him back into the rotation. He's playing great. McBride, Alvarado, whatever combination he wants to go to, he feels comfortable doing. And last year, that was not an option for the Knicks. He had to ride his 5, 6, 7 best guys all the time. So the Knicks have done that. Brown has done that, and they do think it'll matter now.
How about the feeling there? That they think they're going to go to the finals now for the first time since '99, and they're the favorites to win the East. Is it Bedlam?
There's a lot of confidence here, Paul. The Knicks sort of had it all year long. The fans lost it, during the season a couple times.
Yes.
The Knicks were just one of those teams that, in fairness to them too, they did, as we just talked about, have a new coach. They weren't supposed to go 70 wins when you're developing the system. But there were times when they just didn't look like they wanted to play. And, in that Atlanta series, they should have won that series much easier. They took the foot off the gas a couple times. But once they put it on, they have an incredibly high ceiling. And if they keep the foot on the grass, there's every reason to think they should be the best team in the East.
Yeah. I thought you had an excellent tweet at the end of Game 6 that no one mentioned. Why did Atlanta lose and sit people on the final day of the regular season when they could have faced Cleveland? They might have gone to the conference finals.
It was so confusing, Paul. I want to give Atlanta the benefit of the doubt and think they weren't necessarily trying to play the Knicks, that they just didn't maybe understand the tiebreakers, or that they thought, Orlando was going to beat Boston, or Boston wasn't playing all their guys. There were so many different scenarios that day, but if Atlanta had just played their guys and won the game, they would have stayed 5 and everything would have been fine.
Yes.
And I know people thought, okay, well, Cleveland's good too, whatever. But when you watch the way they matched up with the Knicks, why they thought that was a matchup that you should even take a chance of playing against, it's a massive mistake. I mean, they were just not able. Again, they won 2 games. They should have won maybe 1 at the most. So they're just a mistake Atlanta has to live with.
And the defense was tremendous in the series. Josh Hart effectively took Jalen Johnson out of the series. You also had Bridges helping out there. They also limited CJ McCollum when it mattered at the end of that thing. The defense has been the 6th best in the league since January 1st. What do you attribute that shift for this team being since we flipped the calendar to the new year? All of a sudden, defense has improved. And who do you think is on Maxey? Who do you think's on Embiid? How do you think they handle that in this series?
Well, I think they'll play Towns on Embiid for the most part, and obviously whenever Mitchell Robinson's in, he'll do that. Maxey's going to have to be everybody. They're going to have to play a lot of guys against him because, you watch the way he killed them early in the year. You don't want to have to throw Mikal Bridges out there all the time. He's not that, he can defend a lot of guys, but that's not the kind of guy, there's not a lot of guys I've seen with the ball who are as fast as Maxey in all my years covering this. So they're going to have to put some guys out there. The good thing the Knicks do have, though, they have some very good individual defenders, and it's going to make your team defense better when you can bring a guy like Jose Alvarado off the bench for a little while who's fresh and just to play defense against a guy. That matters. So, I think they'll be able to sort of maybe wear Maxey down a little bit, but they're not going to contain him totally no matter what.
Excellent job, my friend. Enjoy the game. Enjoy the series. We'll be talking soon. Appreciate it.
Look forward to it. Thank you, guys. Take care.
Right.
Thanks, Brian.
Brian Mahoney covers the NBA for the Associated Press. He owns the Progressive guest line at Brian C. Mahoney on X. And boy, how things have changed. Go back a week ago. Sky's falling in New York. Fire Brown. Celtics are going to run out the Sixers. They beat them by 32 twice. Orlando's up 3-1.
I've been doing this dance all year, though, as a Knicks fan. I believed, and I didn't believe. I believed, I didn't believe. They're soft, they're tough, they're good, they're bad, they can shoot, they can score. It's too much Brunson, it's not enough Brunson. I've gone back and forth so many ways. I'm ready to get my heart broken in this series.
All right, it's right there. It's right there for you when you get to the finals. 0-10 against the top teams as well.
Yeah,
it's another one.
Yep.
The big news today in Major League Baseball, Skubal has to have surgery on his left elbow. What that means for AEL Cy Young. Coming up next.